Welcome to another episode of Erik Wait Whiskey Studies. In this video, going to do a review of the Balcones French Oak or Froak Texas Single Malt Whiskey. This is a whiskey that I think is best fit for bourbon lovers. So in the whiskey community, there are people who they just like Scotch. They just like malt. There are some people who just like bourbon. This is a malt that I think plays really, really well for bourbon lovers. Of course, there are some of us who are more eclectic and we like just about everything. Although, percentage-wise, I am mostly a Scotch fan or a malt fan. But this is a whiskey that I think carries a lot of characteristics that is going to be enjoyed both by malt lovers and bourbon lovers. But before I get into it, here are my notes. The Balcones Froak Texas Single Malt Whiskey is made from 100% malted barley. This is batch Froak 19-1. The date on it is 5/30/19. It was aged for at least 36 months in French oak casks. It is non-chill filtered, has natural color, bottled at 61.9% alcohol by volume, and sells for anywhere between $79 and $92. So as you can see there, the ABV on this is extreme. It's cask strength. Now a lot of Balcones whiskeys can be cask strength and they can be up in the higher upper 50s to the low 60s. So there can be some variation from cask to cask. But as you saw there, this is over 60% alcohol by volume. The profile on this whiskey is dominated by the oak. Some of the others, such as Lineage and Mirador, have much more of the fruity fermentation characteristics in them. This is really all about the extraction from the French oak. And the result is, it gives you characteristics that I think, even though it doesn't smell like a bourbon, nevertheless play to the strengths of bourbon and what bourbon lovers love. Now color-wise, no added coloring. It is really, really, really dark. I mean, that is like a dark brown with a little bit of bronze and gold just around the edge. On the nose, loads and loads and loads of barrel spice, cinnamon, nutmeg, clove, thyme, a lot of those herb notes, but extreme vanilla. But whereas, say, a lot of bourbons, particularly Kentucky bourbons, you're going to have obviously some corn notes in there, some canned corn, candy corn, some sort of corn note. This doesn't have that, but it has all the barrel notes that you expect from a bourbon. Coffee, toffee, loads of vanilla, baking spices. It does have some stone fruit notes. I'm gonna go like a dried peach, maybe a little bit of apricot, but it really is oak cask spice dominant. Maybe a little bit of licorice or anise. But the oak characteristic on this is a little bit more charred. So it's more of a charred oak characteristic, and all of the spice characteristics are charred notes. Probably from the intensity of the Texas climate. All right, on the palate. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. This is not a whiskey I'm going to drink neat. I'm reviewing it neat because people get upset if I skip the neat part of the review. So I'm going to do a two-step review. The first part is neat. At this ABV, my tongue is going numb. It is tingling from the alcohol. Now, if you want to drink this whiskey neat, that is between you, your liver, and your doctor. For me, this needs to be taken down. Now, because I know Balcones whiskeys, and I have quite a number of them in my collection, and I know what they're like, I treat these as if they are whiskey concentrate. You know, sort of like you buy an orange concentrate, and you don't, drink that straight out of your glass with breakfast. Rather, you put it into a larger container, and then you add some water to it to make your orange juice. That's exactly what this is. This is whiskey concentrate. So it's gonna need, at least for me, a little bit of water. However, I think the water needs to integrate into the whiskey really well, so it's going to take some time. My recommendation is at least 3 large, maybe 4 large, tablespoons or teaspoons of water into it. Or if you put it into a rocks glass and just add 2, medium to small ice cubes and then let that melt. As it's melting down, it is slowly, obviously becoming water and integrating into the spirit. So you can either do that, and then the coldness of the ice cubes, trust me, you're getting tons of flavor. It's not going to take anything away from this whiskey. Or if you put a little bit of water into it and then sort of let it sit, I would say 15 minutes or so, and let the water integrate. I would not switch it. I would not swirl it. Maybe slowly give it a gentle roll, because it isn't filtered. All the oils are in there, and the water isn't going to immediately integrate. They'll be separate, but eventually they'll integrate, and it's going to taste really nice. So my second part of this review is going to be on ice. So 3 ice cubes. I'm going to add a little bit more. Bring it up to right about there, and I'm going to give this about 10 minutes or so.
11 minutes later.
All right, now one of the ice cubes is almost completely gone. The other 2 are halfway gone. I don't know why I'm showing you the glass. I just am. Trust me. It's not losing a ton. Yeah, I know people say, oh, you lose flavor when you, add ice to it. At this strength and this intensity of climate and what it does to a whiskey, it's still got a lot going on. You're not losing anything. So, neat. It had a lot of bite. I'm getting some numbing character there. I get caramel, I get vanilla, I get nutmeg, I get cinnamon, I get anise, I get black licorice, fruit characteristics. I'm getting a little bit of, say, of peach and apricot, basically on the stone fruit side. Now, cool down a little bit of more water into it, bring the ABV down a little bit, and what do we get? Wow. So, while the intensity of the flavor is still there, that bite and numbing trait is not quite as bad. It's still a little bit there. It's not completely tamed down, but it is brought much more into check. It's much more approachable now than it was before. I'm still tasting it now. Tasted blind. This is like a bourbon in which you basically removed all the corn notes and then added malt notes. So I get that maltiness on the back end, but wow. On the palate, all the richness from the extraction of the cask. Vanilla, caramel, butterscotch, toffee, cinnamon, nutmeg, thyme, a little bit of anise. There's a little bit of, the black licorice character there, but it's not like a rye or a high rye bourbon, but there still is just a little bit there. There is an oakiness to it that is sort of a charred oak character to it. On the palate, it's just really powerful. There's no mistaking this from a cool climate, with a cool climate whiskey. There's no mistaking this with anything from Ireland or anything from Scotland or a cooler climate whiskey. No amount of time of a Scottish whiskey or an Irish whiskey or any cool climate old world whiskeys are you gonna get this kind of intensity. It's like someone has just grabbed a hold of the cask, grabbed a hold of you, and just pulling on it. I've had plenty of cask strength Scottish whiskeys. I like high ABV cask strength Scottish whiskeys with some age on them. I would say they're actually more approachable, more well developed. There's a more of it's hard to describe matureness to them that I prefer. That being said, you're going to have to pay $120 and up for high ABV aged Scottish whiskies. They're going to even try to get close in terms of the amount of flavor you're going to get from this whiskey. This is a whiskey that it's as if it's been microwaved. It's just that intense. Now, it does in some sense seem youthful, but there's no green notes. There's no new makey character to the at all, because the extraction from the cask is so intense and so big. That is completely gone. So it's absolutely amazing what they can do in 3 years, give or take, with this whiskey. This is absolutely superb. Now, one of the challenges is if you drink whiskeys like this all the time, I think you could become acclimated to it, and consequently you wouldn't really have that sense of the intensity of the whiskey. I think it's best to be one who is more eclectic in your whiskeys. Try different whiskeys at different ages from different countries, because it's more in contrast and comparison of other regions that this comes across as so intense. So if you're used to drinking mostly Scotch or mostly Irish, and then you come to this as a malt, you're really going to be blown away. It's just going to blow your mind. If you're in Texas, as a lot of our friends do, a lot of our fellow whiskey tours are down in Texas, and they drink this stuff all the time, they're probably used to this. They probably drink this stuff neat, Matt Zitrick over at Whiskey Crusaders, he probably drinks this for breakfast every day, It's not that big of a deal to him. But if you're accustomed to drinking Scotch and Irish, this is going to really, really sort of just knock you over. An absolute fantastic whiskey. Now, if you're a bourbon lover and you sort of stick your nose up at Scotch and you stick your nose up at malt, you say, that's not my dig, that's not my jam, whatever. This is a whiskey you're going to want to try, because I think it does have the cask characteristics that bourbon lovers typically gravitate towards. Now, what I'm going to give it in terms of a score, I'm going to give this a solid 95 points. A solid 95 points out of 100. This really, really delivers in terms of intensity and in terms of development. It is mostly sweet, but that's kind of like the way a bourbon comes across. It has a lot of depth. It has a lot of complexity to it. It has a lot of layers to it. It has a really long finish. I am still tasting it now. This can be a little challenging to get. Production is somewhat low. You can get this outside of Texas if you hunt around. I bought this one down in Texas, but I've seen these on rare occasions here in California. Alrighty, that's it for this review. If you subscribe to this channel, I want to thank you very much. If you've not yet subscribed, but you like watching my videos, I would ask that you subscribe, ring the bell to be notified for when I go live or post a new video. And until next time, cheers.
Hey, don't forget to subscribe and check out these other whiskey videos.